So we know the Nico Iamaleava era is over at the University of Tennessee. The next big question that looms is who plays quarterback for the Vols in 2025. We're going to evaluate their options next. Hey, Lucas Panzica here, 104.5 The Zone and A to Z Sports. So the dust has largely settled in what was a wild 3 days. Nico Iamaleava first in contract negotiations with Tennessee and then holding out, missing practice. And then, of course, the news on Saturday that the Vols are moving on from Nico as a program. So he's going to go look for that $4 million he was looking for elsewhere outside of the SEC. And now Tennessee's got to find an answer at quarterback. Now, this wasn't necessarily talked about, but there was football being played, at least practice, happening on the field at Neyland Stadium as the Vols were playing their orange and white game. It was not televised. It was aired on the radio, courtesy of the Vol Network. Only two quarterbacks were in action, the only two quarterbacks currently on Tennessee's roster, and they are Jake Merklinger and George McIntyre, a pair of former four-stars, one of which has an entire season under his belt as a backup, and that is Jake Merklinger. Both, by all accounts, have had an excellent spring growing within this system at the University of Tennessee, and there certainly is a situation in which they could compete for the starting job in 2025, where you would think Merklinger would be in the driver's seat for his added experience that he has with a whole year already under his belt and now 2 spring practices under his belt with the program. But Josh Heupel did say in his press conference after the orange and white game that Tennessee plans to add a third quarterback to its roster in 2025. The spring transfer portal opens up on Wednesday, April 16th. It's a 10-day period where Tennessee will be on the lookout either for a starter or for added depth at the quarterback position. So what could their options be? Well, right now, that's a very difficult question to answer, as no major quarterback at another Power 4 or Group of 5 conference has announced that he's entering the transfer portal after spring practice. In fact, most of these moves typically happen in the winter portal. That's when a lot of these big money moves certainly end up happening. Carson Beck to Miami, Darian Mensah to Duke. Of course, you have Bo Pribula going from Penn State to Missouri. That's largely when the action happens in the quarterback market. So when you look at Tennessee's potential options, all you can really do is look around at other high-profile quarterbacks that have a talent profile that could be attractive to Tennessee, and vice versa if they're looking to level up in terms of program. Plenty of names have been tossed around, completely speculative, right? Whether it's Sam Leavitt, the quarterback that helped lead Arizona State to the playoff last year, Avery Johnson, the former 4-star prospect who had a really impressive starting debut season last year for Kansas State. Again, none of these quarterbacks have announced that they're entering the transfer portal, but Tennessee is going to have its eyes open, and you've got to think that Tennessee's been doing some back channeling when this Nico stuff really started to bubble back up to the surface to figure out if they needed a contingency plan, which it turns out they certainly will. Another interesting question is, how does this impact Tennessee's ceiling in 2025? It's not a question we can answer right now either, because that was beforehand, just a few days ago, completely dependent on the leap that Nico Iamaleava was going to take from year 1 to year 2. If Tennessee got the Nico they got last year, then this team would not be a playoff team. But if Tennessee got a Nico that took a next step and fully achieved that status of elite quarterback in college football, which has been the expectation of him from the jump, then the sky felt like it was the limit for Tennessee football. Now, it's a little bit back to square one at the quarterback position. I do know this seems like a galvanized group moving forward, and it'll be interesting to see if any other players follow Nico to the transfer portal. I will add that if they don't, that might be pretty telling about what Nico's impact was or wasn't as a leader within this locker room. But either way, Tennessee's quarterback options are as follows. Either Jake Merklinger or George McIntyre getting the start for the Vols in 2025, or a high-profile transfer that enters the portal here in the coming days. I will say this, couple $1 million just freed up for Tennessee football in 2025. If there is a quarterback looking to take a step up in terms of program and is impressed by what Josh Heupel has done with quarterbacks earlier in his career, then Tennessee will be a very attractive landing spot for one of those guys. It's going to be a very interesting week, as it seems like it always is on Rocky Top.